So let's start. Last week I've been reviewing PRs, and after done with the YAML to C++ migration, I will try to wrap up the PR reviews from Ridek and Xuehan, hopefully by the end of this week. And that's me, Ridek.
Okay, I will just repeat for the info from the yesterday sync up. Last week I sent a bunch of PRs related to Watch Notify implementation, like the timeout support for watches, which is built on top of the internal client infrastructure, plus some minor fixes like a sec fault in the Notify, around the Notify class, around its timeout handling. However, the most interesting part I would love to get more comments about is related to both watch and the end-to-end mapping. As you know, classical OSD, in classical OSD, the watch is coupled with the session. It's done through the watch constate class. It sits in the session in the session class. It's a member of the session class. Here's the link. Okay. The reason why.
Radek, if you're talking about it, can you spend 5 minutes for background about the watches?
Okay.
Where it is used. Sorry, I'm.
Sorry, no worries. Pub stop pattern. OSD provides such functionality. One client can set up a watch on particular object, while another client could dispatch some kind of notification message on that object. Basically, it's an incarnation of the pub sub pattern.
Okay.
Glowing in the chat window.
Yeah. Okay. A question. If already got the first. A question. It's only used by external clients.
No, it's the primary user is RBD. Yeah, it's external client. Okay, do you mean third party client or the client?
What do you mean by external?
I meant real external, but anyway, I understand. Two questions. Internal to the OSD, no, but our software, RBD, etc., uses it, right?
Okay, yep. Both. Yes to both. Let me start from the second thing. Yes, RBD and now I believe also RGW use the watch notified machinery. RBD does that for the sake of implementation of RBD image locking. So it's quite needed. And internal client, if you mean things like simple OPC create and simple OPC submit, I will write down in the chat. Create, submit. Well, they are aware about the concept of watch, mostly for the sake of watch timeout implementation. In Crimson, it's made different. In Crimson, we got the internal client request infrastructure. When a SeaStore timer fires, we call the start operation with internal client request class as a template parameter. It actually reuses the same things like the I/O traffic coming from RBD or RGW or any other Redis client, mostly the ops executor. Yeah. Anyway, the junction point with end-to-end mapping is detection of connection reset. Particularly MS handle reset a call to MS handle reset call from dispatcher. Fortunately, it seems it's necessary only for the sake of for the sake of legacy, for the sake of 10 years unused, 10 years ago deprecated variant of the watch operation. And
not quite that old, but yeah, interesting.
I make a RFC PR, and I would love to get your comments about if we really can drop the coupling between watch and session in classical OSD. We could, I believe, encapsulate the watch / notify machinery entirely in boundaries of RPG. So it will be a little bit easier to implement end-to-end mapping.
Why don't we need this disconnect call?
Okay, for watch timeout management, in the very old version of the watch semantic, we have our own ping machinery.
Yep.
We were starting the reconnection timeout when a MS handle reset call was detected.
So this disconnect call and WatchCon state reset, this is a no-op for modern watches?
Yes.
No. Great. This is a great patch. Excellent.
There is it's mostly no-op. All it does on classical in the current semantic is setting the connection of the connection pointer to null, which has some little changes when it comes to reconnection. I think we can live with the side effects, but I would love to.
Reference. That's a problem. Yes, that's a problem.
Not sure.
It is. I'm telling you, it's a problem. So the only time, the only situation wherein it wouldn't be a problem is when the timeout completes. I presume we clean it up.
No,
is that right? Wait a second. The sessions are rep counted, so holding.
Of course.
Yeah. So my question is, how do we have rep count?
Okay, I checked. When somebody tries to send a message to an already closed connection because of, let's say, reset.
But that won't necessarily happen. There may not be any notifies on that watch for a really long time.
Yes, it will happen, but it will be safe. It will be basically no op. In sent message of
No. What I'm telling you is that may not happen for a long time. You can't hold a session until then. It'll get cleaned up when the timeout expires, right? I can live with that. I need you to prove that under all circumstances that reference gets dropped. Not necessarily immediately, but within a bounded
yes.
amount of time.
Okay, in bound amount of time, it will.
As in, for instance, the timeout. That
exactly. Exactly.
And that
timeout
definitely always happens?
Yep.
Okay, that's fine.
It won't be immediately.
Yes, but we control
finally
it will
do.
happen deterministically regardless of what clients do.
Yeah, 30 seconds by default for timeout for the timeout value.
That's fine. I was just concerned if it depended on someone sending a watch. That wouldn't be okay because that could be hours.
Okay. You were afraid. You were afraid about the leakage of a connection,
yes,
right?
Yes, that's correct. So as long as we're sure it gets cleaned up, we're fine.
I think it's safe. Sooner or later.
Well, I mean, don't figure. Be sure, but yeah. As long as it gets cleaned up when the timeout fires, I think we're good. That should do the job.
Yep.
Sweet. This is way better than trying to shoehorn this into Crimson. I love it. Way simpler.
And we don't use the legacy for 10 years, so.
Is it really 10 years? I remember adding that watch.
Well, I asked Josh, and Josh was pretty sure it's almost 10 years old gizmo.
I think it's 2012 or 2013.
Okay.
Well, 10 years would make it 2011, which would be Argonaut, I think. That would be too early. Okay, cool.
And the last thing is just tiny PR for the builders infrastructure. Idea is to limit is to not build unnecessary flavors, unnecessary packages. If somebody wants only the crimson flavor. That's it. That's it when it comes to PRs. Now I'm going to. I would love to take another piece of M2M mapping. Do we have assignments? Who is going to work on what?
Nope.
I updated the trailer board to try to put the item listed by Sam in last meetup in the released cart. So please feel free to grab it if you want. I'm fitting the URL to the
thank you.
To the trailer board in the chat
window.
I didn't get a chance to split it into a smaller item of a card, but I will do. Let me find the M2M1. It should be somewhere. Well, by the way, I also tried to repack the Crimson per the discussion we had on Crimson root integration discussion, where Sage suggests us to create a different package for Crimson instead of using the current approach. In the current approach, we have like two flavors, multiple flavors. One is the Crimson, which package the Crimson instead of the SafeOSD in place of SafeOSD. But the Sage suggests that it would be better to have a separate package for Crimson. But I ran into
they have
some
different
problem.
dependencies, so that sounds right.
For a couple of reasons. One is that the most interesting reason is that the user might want to know what what OSD he or she is using, not by poking the executable, trying to send it to different options, instead of just checking the package. Because apart from the package, the executable, those two packages are identical.
You're saying in both cases the executable is Ceph OSD?
Yes.
I don't think that's a good idea.
Yes, that's also suggested, because
I don't think that's good.
same.
People shouldn't be able to accidentally run Crimson. That'll be super confusing.
Yes, it's confusing. So I was trying to create a different package just for Crimson, but since they share the same, apart from the executable, they share a lot of scripts. Let's put it this way. So one script need to install into different subdirectories. So I need to make it happen, to do some trick in the packaging script. I suppose that's where I was. I will continue these efforts later on. That's me. Renan.
Hi everybody. To repeat from yesterday, I have an outstanding PR waiting for review for a week before, which introduces some changes to classic OS Scrub in order to make it similar to what I partially have for Crimson. I am working on another such PR, and basically we spend the next days merging the interrupted future changes, which are on the same files that I'm working on in some way, and that's it. That's it for me.
Sam?
I'm finalizing the PR for the first step of read and write support. At the moment, it supports read and write and truncate, but not clone. That will be the next step, with a sort of a static mapping from object to logical offset. You'll see what I mean. That is, when you create an object, it statically allocates 16 megabytes of logical address space, not of actual disk space, just of numbers in the logical address mapping. There's a logical address mapping that is sparse. It just says all of the offsets from X to Y are allocated to this object. Actual data extents will get created as writes happen, but the numbers are allocated that way. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure I'm following you. What do you mean by different logic address? I thought that all objects are sharing the same logical address space, right?
Yeah, but it's a 64-bit number. Each object will get some subset of that, in this case 16 megs of it, for their own data. So offset 0 for an object will be at offset whatever, 1 gigabyte plus whatever in the logical address space, some bit pattern. The important thing is that it has 16 megs of contiguous numbers, so that we only have to store one mapping in the O node. One number in the O node, just an offset to length.
Okay.
Makes sense.
But
so,
why?
What's that?
But why would we need to pre-allocate the contiguous numbers for each object?
Two reasons. One, so why do we need to pre-allocate them is one question. The other question is, why do they need to be contiguous? The contiguous question is because that way we don't need an extent map manager. That way we can say all of the numbers from X to Y are in this object. So if I need 1 megabyte into the object, I just add 1 megabyte to the offset stored in the O node, and that's it. I have the data. I don't need to actually store a B tree. We use the logical address mapping itself for that. Okay. Why is it pre-allocated? The reason for that is that at the moment, Transaction Manager is incapable of remapping the logical address for a physical extent, because the garbage collector requires the logical address for an extent to be written into the segment when the extent is originally written down. I need to there's an optimization I was going to do for the logical address mapping anyway, which fixes this problem. So that's what I'll do next. Namely, we need a mapping. In addition to a mapping from logical addresses to physical addresses, we need a reverse mapping from physical addresses back to logical addresses. It'll make scanning a segment much more efficient because we'll only look at the live segments. And secondly, it'll let us mutate that mapping. Okay, that means that we will be able to dynamically grow these allocated regions by moving the extents to a bigger region. And more importantly, it'll let clone work. When we need to use clone range on an extent, we'll move those regions out to a new logical address space, and both of the objects that it now belongs to will have redirects to those that new logical address mapping. So that's what I'm going to do next. Chunmei, I just got the bug we were talking about to reproduce with logs, so hopefully I'll be able to figure it out. I'm working on that as well.
Thank you, Sam. That's a nice design. Johan.
Last week I was mainly focusing on the SeaStore's X attributes related interfaces. I'm also trying to get more familiar with the SeaStore code. That's all for me.
Did you get a chance to reproduce the memory leak issue found by Mark? I recall that he sent us a mail noting that he tried to set up the reproducing environment for us in the CK lab.
I tried on my own servers, but it hasn't been a successful endeavor. And right now I'm waiting for Mark to set up the environment on 003 CPU machine.
Sure. Okay. I'll follow it up with you. Yingxin?
I'm working on the node tree. At the node level, I found and implemented a corner course that will cause further recursive merge. And at a layout level, I implemented value erase and tests passing. I also implemented the node merge operation, and I'm still writing tests to validate the implementation. And that's all.
Thank you. Anything else?
Kefu, I still have something to update. I took annual leave these days, but so not much updated. But I still try to several times about the NBD testing. So I couldn't finish the highway payload testing because every time I meet different problems. Most time it seems hung in the Crimson SeaStore NBD side, and the FO cannot finish the testing. But no error report in Crimson. It seems Sam said it is maybe hung in some places.
The garbage collector is probably
garbage collector. Did you reproduce that, or you reproduced the add pin error?
Yeah.
Add pin.
So I'm not super surprised that it's not stable enough for meaningful performance testing. So I would maybe leave that alone for now. One thing that would be really helpful is if we could get actual backtraces from Crimson Store NBD and Crimson OSD, that would be amazing. If there's a way to modify the build process or wrap them or somehow to make it so that the debug output we get at the end has actually demangled symbols, that would be enormously helpful. I was wondering if you might have cycles to look into that.
I try to use enable debug, then the error disappear. No harm.
That's not what I'm asking about. In general, if we get a crash, like a seg fault or whatever, we get a backtrace, but they're mangled. We get pointers. We don't get names.
How we get backtrace?
Yeah, I was wondering if you'd be interested in investigating what would be required to get actually
GDB.
Decent backtraces.
What tools you mentioned?
We can use GDB or we can use the other tool, but it's very annoying. It would be nice if it just printed those out.
I can't use GDB get the backtrace. It just print out some lab C backtrace. So, when I noticed that it is hung and you stop the GDB and print the backtrace, it is lab C, many lab C.
Yeah. Right. I'm not talking about this bug.
Oh, okay.
So in general, with Crimson development, we have this problem that when something crashes, the debug output we get at the end, the print to standard error, is just pointers, right? It would be really convenient if we got those demangled back to symbols without needing to use an extra tool. I was wondering if you'd be interested in trying to investigate what would be required to do that automatically all the time.
I tried like
Which one?
two
Address
months
to
ago
line, something like that.
Yes, building address to line support, because in Ceph we have a building support of this kind of facility.
Yeah.
So when the executable crashes, we catch the signal and print out the backtrace in a demangled way. So we can check the symbols instead of looking at the addresses or numbers. But like 2 months ago, I tried to import this facility to Crimson, basically in the same way, but I failed. The way I failed is that I only the backtrace only have like the innermost 3 or 4 stacks print out in demangled symbol, but apart from them, all of them are still numbers. I failed to find why. I shared the working progress with Redec. I have no idea why. Probably it's related to how we linked with Crimson. Oh, sorry, with SeaStore, or failed to pass some compiling options to Crimson. That's my guess.
Yeah, I tried address to line, but couldn't get effect information.
Oh, really? Address to line always works for me.
Oh, it works for you?
Yes, indeed.
That's one of the biggest obstacles to debugging SeaStore at this point. When something crashes that isn't on my machine, I can't debug it. Very difficult.
You mean that you actually need to manually go through ADDR2 line, or is even worse, ADDR, even the external tool doesn't work?
I think same problem is that whenever
it's not a problem if it's on my machine. The problem is when it's on someone else's machine.
Yeah.
So just from a basic usability point of view, we categorically have to have backtraces printed properly in Crimson OSD. It's mandatory.
I see.
We'll never be able to
had this. We already had the discussion with Kifo, and we actually came to the same conclusion. Maybe we should put it on top even before the end-to-end.
Well, I mean, not everyone needs to be working on it, right? I was just wondering if anyone had spare bandwidth and wanted to look into it. I was suggesting it to Chunmei in particular because Crimson Store and VD just isn't stable enough for performance testing right now. It's a waste of time.
I think we can put it away for some time.
I mean, it'll be ready again pretty soon, but I'm going to rewrite basically that pinning subsystem that's causing trouble because I need to make changes to it to support the reverse mapping I need to do. So I'm not hugely interested in debugging it since I'm going to rewrite it anyway. So in the meantime, it would be good to work on something else probably, or on a different part of SeaStore. That would be good too. There is actually quite a list of stuff to work on in SeaStore. I mentioned it. Oh, let me link that again. That would be another option. Where did I put that pad?
You mean a task list regarding to SeaStore?
Yeah.
Okay.
Looking for it. SeaStore Quincy. Here we go. I didn't really put any of this in Trello, but here.
I can do it.
Well, people can just do it as they pick stuff up too. That's fine. So ignoring the external interface and CNS thing. Instrumentation's a big one. This might be kind of interesting to you, Chunmei, actually. To add all of the stuff to the perf counter machinery. When we do get to a place where we're able to do meaningful performance testing, this will be the first place we need to look for information. We also need, like, the cache data structure itself is pretty bad, as are the internals to the transaction. They allocate a lot, so profiling those would be interesting as well, if you can find a way to get a profiler working. Feel free to ping me if any of it looks interesting and you want to talk about it through email.
Okay, well, I will go through it and talk with you about the next steps.
Okay. Anything else? No? Okay, talk to you later and have a good one. Thank you.
Later.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah.